Sure shot, baby.
Good day, everyone. We're here for another episode of the DVD show. So, for today, we have a very great import here in the Philippines during his time, and he was a very great import for the Alaska Aces, who sadly is not going to be in the PBA anymore for the foreseeable future. And as you can see on his StreamYard name, it says Mr. 100%. I'll now welcome here to the DVD show, Sean Chambers. Thank you for joining me here on my podcast.
Maraming salamat. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, maraming salamat din sa pagtanggap sa invitation. And syempre, to start things off, I'd want to ask first, how is life there? You mentioned you're in Sacramento, California now, and the Omicron variant after it hit the country, it's been better in most cities in the state. So yeah, how is it there so far?
Yeah, so we're starting to have some progress here in the States where I don't know if you know, but I'm a dean of students at a middle school here in Sacramento now. And so we
Yeah.
are starting to have more freedom. Students don't have to wear masks when they're outside
Oh, okay.
anymore. So we're starting to get rid of the mask mandate. And after the Omicron, with the numbers went up really fast, but then now we're starting to have a big decline in our numbers. So, hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel so we can get back to some normalcy. Um, just praying that things get better.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned that you're a principal now in a middle school there in Sacramento. So how long have you been a principal? And how's it like being a principal now instead of like a basketball player?
Well, you kind of have the same kind of qualities that you want to have as a leader. You want to be someone that leads with integrity, somebody that's going to be fair, honest, and give 100%. So I take what I did as a basketball player and I incorporate it as a dean of students or assistant principal. I enjoy my job because it's constantly moving and fluid. Every day there's a new day. You never know what it's going to bring to you. As we see our model on our campus, once we open up the gates and let everybody into the school, then you kind of see what's coming with it. But I've been in my position now at this school for 13 years, and
Wow, okay.
it's been a joy. It's been pretty rewarding because it was just the next part of my life, and now I've been a principal almost as long as I was a basketball player.
Okay. You plan to do that for the future, like, or what do you want to do after that? If you have.
Well, I had a lot of people know I had negotiated a contract. I was going to come back and possibly coach in the UAAP.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the pandemic happened, but there was two schools I was doing some serious negotiation with, and unfortunate because of there's been no games in the UAAP that it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to. But I do have a goal one time to come back to the Philippines and do what I do now because then I coach at a high school level. I coach women's basketball, and tomorrow
Oh.
actually we have at Antelope High School where I got my shirt on. We
Yeah.
have a championship game tomorrow for the
Oh,
championship.
good luck.
So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Yes.
How is it like coaching though for women? Isn't it like vastly different? Like since you were teammates with
It's
like men.
it's unique because when I go back to Manila and I get to do some consulting with Alaska in the past, what I found out is what we do with the girls side, it's very similar but different. Is like it translates to both women and men. The girls
Mm-hmm.
are a little bit more by the line and by the instruction of the coach.
Yeah.
The guys, you can let them freelance and let them have their own individuality in what they play within a system. So the girls are not going to have too many more individualities within a system. They're going to be kind of, you got to help them create and get themselves like shots and help them how to maneuver and get open on some backdoor plays or screens or what have you not.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have a lot of experiences playing everywhere already, like majority here in the Philippines, and you can impart it to them. And the women's basketball is getting better in the states. Like WNBA
Yes.
is getting more popular, and
Yes.
the high school level and the college level are getting more attention now. So that's great for you. But then before we continue with your career, I'd wanna ask first about your upbringing and childhood, like how you started playing basketball and yeah, now becoming a principal and a coach as well. So where did you grow up, and how was your childhood like? Was it like basketball from the beginning, or did you have other
Yeah.
things before
So
basketball?
I grew up in Sacramento, and I originally was a baseball player. So I was
Oh, okay.
really a big baseball fan, and but then as I got older, I'm super hyper, and we know when you're hyper, you want things moving and moving and faster. And so when I first got my first taste of basketball was like in seventh grade, and I
Mm-hmm.
instantly fell in love with it because the speed of the pace of the game was just fed to my energy level. So grew up in Sacramento, went to a high school not down the street from me called Highlands High School. We are very, 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 very successful. We're actually a legendary team in Sacramento where we won 33 games and we had zero losses. So and that went on to me going on later on to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where I was a Division II basketball All American
Oh, okay.
college, and then eventually made my way over to the Philippines. Um, my mother raised us by herself. I have two sisters and one younger brother. We lived a very modest life, but we were fine. We were good people. We didn't have to want for much, but we didn't have a lot, but we didn't want for a lot either.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I got over to Alaska and played for the Philippines, it really definitely changed my lifestyle and how I live today.
Yeah. I found out that you studied before in Cuesta College and in Cal
That's,
Poly. Like, how was your stint there before moving to the Philippines, and what prompted you to move after having a great collegiate stint in those universities?
so I started off at a junior college called Cuesta, like you said, and at Cuesta, I was able to play in a town called San Luis Obispo that was a really big basketball community, a small town by the beach. And I absolutely love it there, man. It's such a beautiful place to live and grow up. And I was very lucky to go spend my college days in San Luis Obispo because of the culture was so free and open and loving and welcoming to everybody. So then after my days at Cal Poly, it really prepared me for the Philippines because I became so popular and well known on the campus. So
Mm-hmm.
it prepared me to what life would be like in the Philippines as a PBA player,
Wow.
to
Okay.
see what it's like to be a celebrity for real. But I had
Yeah.
a small part of it in college. But when I got to the Philippines, it was like, wow, you're truly an icon. Once you went in the Philippines, you become an icon, and people celebrate you and they appreciate your success when you do things the right way in the Philippines.
Yeah. For sure, you had a terrific career here. And it was like what 12 years. But then, how were you discovered before donning the Alaska jersey? Like, did
Um,
any of the scouts go there?
so what happened was I played in the IBA All Star team. So we toured over to Korea, Philippines, and Hong Kong.
Oh
So
yeah.
during the IBA Challenge is when I got noticed for um, because of slam dunk contest against Billy Ray Bates. And when I beat Billy Ray Bates, I became pretty famous in the Philippines overnight. the
Yeah. For sure.
next
Yeah.
year, yeah, then the next year I get a call from Alaska asking if I would come over and take over an import's place. And it was history ever after that. So that's how I got noticed. I was on the IB All Star team.
Yeah, and then with your Alaska stint, I believe you guys were like constant like third placers. Like you guys weren't winning championships yet at that time until
Right.
1991, I think, or 1993.
Yes.
So what made you stay? Like you kept coming back. Wasn't it tough for you that you guys weren't winning at all as a competitive professional?
Well, my first year there, when I came over in 1989, we took third place. The next year, when I returned, we had my teammate was Carlos Clark. We had two imports at that time, and we were the runners up. We lost in the championship against then Pure Foods and JoJo Lastimosa.
Yeah.
And then I came back in '91, and that's when we won our first championship. So I only experienced two losing seasons before the third one.
Okay, so it did really hamper your
Yeah,
expectations here and like coming back to the franchise and playing for Alaska
right,
again.
right. Some
Yeah.
of the third place finishes happened before I got there.
Okay, yeah, yeah, for sure. But then before you got here, like what were your first impressions of the country? Like when you were in the States, like what do you hear about the country? Not really
Well,
maybe basketball and also off the court, like in terms of the culture, the environment. I mean, of course when you're in the States, it's like miles away from here, 1,000 miles away.
yeah. So when I first heard I was going to go do a tour in the Philippines, I had no idea anything about the country, anything about the people. I had no inclination what it was going to be like in the Philippines. And then if you go back, that I went to the Philippines. My first year was in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, uh, 1989, and back then, this is not too long after the Etzel Revolution.
Yeah.
Makati was still kind of a small little town, and a lot of buildings were starting to go up, but it was very, it wasn't like it is now. Like I
Mm-hmm.
literally watched the country grow since 1989 to now, 2022. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I was able to witness the growth of the Philippines as a little, what do we call it, a tiger country. Like I watched it grow into what it is now financially, and everything that happened on Rojas Boulevard. Man, I remember Rojas Boulevard back in the 90s, man.
Mm-hmm.
Old hotels, old buildings, and now it's it's a mega billion facilities over there, like
Yeah.
the billionaire facilities over there, and of course the Mall of Asia. You know, when I think about some of the malls, like I've seen every mall built in my time in the Philippines, like from
For sure.
Mega Mall. I saw that build. I saw Robinson Galleria build. I saw all those
Yeah.
malls during my time blow up, and even the one that over by the old Ultra. And so it's kind of cool. And I'm sorry, even the fort. Everybody loves to go to the
Yeah.
fort now. Well, that used to be literally a cemetery over there. The
Mm-hmm.
American cemetery, and there was nothing over there. So I really enjoy that I've seen this country grow up the way it did, and it was part of my life.
That's a great thing to hear from you. I didn't know that you were, very observant on everything happening around the country, because not
Yeah.
only on the court and also the everyday life and everything that you do off the court. But then through that, you mentioned a lot of experiences. Do you apply any of like the culture or the tradition now, even if you're back in the States and residing in Sacramento?
That's funny you say that because Saturday's my birthday, and I was just telling
Oh,
Saturday that I have to treat all my workers tomorrow for my birthday. I'm going to get them all lunch tomorrow, and they're
happy
like,
birthday.
"Yeah." They go, "Why are you treating everybody for your birthday?" I go, "This is a true Filipino tradition that you treat all your close ones and your friends on your birthday. They don't treat you; you treat them up
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
something." So I've continued that tradition. I even got all my staff to embrace that tradition as well.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
great. I mean, but for sure, like before, you weren't aware of that when you were younger and in your
Yeah.
teenage years. But then now you enjoy it a lot. It's like a staple
Yeah,
in your life, like
it
a
is.
habit already.
When you give, it'll come back in full force, in the
Yeah,
Philippines.
for
Right.
sure. Yeah, that's something that's very admirable with the culture of the Philippines. But then
Yeah.
one part also that's concerning for some imports when they go here, instead of like the weather, the people, and like yeah, you said the attention. Sometimes they get surprised. How about the physicality of the game? Like, was it more physical? I'm pretty sure it was more physical during the late '80s and early '90s, like similar to the NBA. Like now in the PBA, if they foul you like how they fouled you before, they'd get a suspension or a
Right.
ejection already. How was
Yeah.
it like for you? Was it a gradual process? Was it easy? How was it?
It was a gradual process, but it was something that I embraced because I love to play so hard, and I did like a physical game. Um,
Hmm.
I thought long it was physical but not cheap. It wasn't dirty play. It was always okay with me. And
Hmm.
from where I grew up in North Highland, we were always kind of a physical type of playing guys around this community. So when I got to Manila, it was fine as long as it wasn't like cheap shots or dirty shots that happened in the game. But the physicality was okay with me. And now, of course, from 80 to the 90s and later the 90s, it did become less physical and more protecting other players because I think eventually the owners understood the players are your commodity. If you start having your players getting hurt because of getting fouled, then you're losing your product, right?
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like the forwards in your time, like in the NBA, so Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, they're like more physical compared to the forwards now.
Sure.
But then, in your opinion, what do you enjoy more? Like, what do you think's more enjoyable for the fans in terms of playing style? Because now there's not a lot of players that pound it on the post, like a Joel Embiid or a Jokic. Like now it's more finesse, like a Carl Anthony Towns and all those kinds of guys. So I think it's different now. Even if I wasn't born during that time, even from the videos.
Yeah. So when I watch the game now, so many more pick and rolls, and everybody defends the pick and roll, and it's more of a finesse game. I would like to see some more like ground and pound, some more like somebody around the basket and be able to create one on ones against mismatch. I saw Big Manuel had a pretty big game the other day, and that's kind of
Yeah,
he
20
has an old
points.
school game like that in
Yeah.
June Mar, So, um, but but I still love the game. I like that the fans want to see a lot of scoring, right? We want to see more scoring.
Mhm.
So less fouls creates more scoring, and they want the game to be high paced because that brings the excitement. So, I can go both ways because I do like the high scoring games, and I do like to see people make skill plays and shots that makes the games exciting.
Yeah, I really I could see also both ways, but then I don't know. For me, I like teams that play a lot of defense, locally or internationally. Like I like that better compared to when you just fast break, they just run and then keep scoring. It's I don't know, like the All Star game. That's why they only do it once a year.
Yeah,
It
it's
gets
hard to watch that.
boring to
Yes.
yeah. But then you mentioned the physicality and like the way you play. How did that come about? Like your playing style, the post and all out hustle and pounding it inside. Like, did you develop that when
I
you were
developed that
even
when I was
younger?
in Western College. I had a coach named Jimmy Hines, and he was
Mm-hmm.
teaching me like this little turnaround jump side. Like you want to have a go-to play that you
Mm-hmm.
know that you can make anytime you want to. And so when I developed that turnaround jumper off the backboard, I just got so comfortable with it because I didn't want. I hate missing. I hate missing shots. So I knew I was a pretty high percentage shot for me, and so I kind of fell in love with the shot off the backboard. And so that with that, I played around the basket and maneuvered and used my physicality to score that shot off the backboard. And also then I created a runner, then I created a little crossover. What
Mm-hmm.
I like about the Philippines, because at the time I had off, I was able to continue to advance my game and continue to create another tool in my bag, like create another play, create another skill level. So that was really cool.
Yeah. Who were some of the defenders that really made you have a tough night when you play against them? That really challenged you to evolve and develop as a player.
I would say Zaldi Ray Lubed, Jerry Cordillera, they were pretty
Mm-hmm.
hard for me to score on. Marlo Aquino, whenever he had to cover me because he was 6'9" and he was pretty athletic. Um,
Yeah.
Jolly Escobar
Oh
was
yeah.
good. Let me see. I think those were pretty much the main one that would give me fits.
Mm-hmm.
If ever, Jerry Cordillera for sure. He was the
Yeah,
master.
he was tough. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you mentioned Alaska and you guys won a third place and a runners up. What was your initial impressions of the team? Like I think Coach Tim entered. Was he there right away when he
Sure.
came?
No, I was there before Coach Tim. So it was
Yeah.
all new to me because when I first got there, we didn't have the structure that the PBA has now. Guys
Mm-hmm.
would come to practice late. Some guys smoked cigarettes back then, and it was like kind of a free for all and not whole lot of structure. And I was like pretty surprised by that because I'm coming from an American kid from a college background. College programs are so strict, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
so regiment, and you got such time check-ins and when you're supposed to be in practice and weight rooms and study hall and then you got to go back the next morning and it was so regiment how colleges are run here in the States. And then I get to the Philippines, it was like, wow, it was just free until we practice hard, maybe we didn't practice. And a lot of the practice was just scrimmaging earlier, not
Mm-hmm.
a lot of structure. And then when Tim came in as a consultant, it started to feel like a college program.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what you preferred, especially winning all these championships. But then when Coach Tim came into the team and took over the reign as the head coach, what was your initial thoughts on the system, like the triangle? Because Phil Jackson was running that for the Bulls, but then other players like you who would rack up like 30, 40 points a game, it's kind of difficult, I feel, to adjust to a triangle rather than going one on one and, getting the ball inside.
Well, I'm a very compliant person. Like I follow rules. I'm a rule follower, and my mother always taught me, follow authorities and whatever your leaders are asking of you, you do. So it
Hmm.
was very easy for me to transition to the triangle offense, and I think it also helped Coach Tim empower the locals to get them to buy into it as well. Because
Yeah.
here I am was the importer. I was averaging at that time like 38 points a game.
Yeah.
And then my scoring went down because I was like, I'm all in. And we're running triangle offense. We all have to be all in with it and support it.
Yeah, and running the triangle, it really makes you focus on details that maybe you wouldn't be more meticulous about if it was another system. So did that actually help you a lot, even with other things like off the court and being more detail oriented and
Or again, it helps me with my job today because you have to pay attention to details. You're right. You
yeah,
have to be extremely prepared. We say if you're not prepared, you look unprofessional. So you plan ahead, and so the triangles constantly. Also, it's the next play. What's the next movement that's going to happen?
hmm
So, sure, basketball still is a part of my life, even as a principal.
So why do you think other schools or teams don't run the triangle as much now in this era?
Well, I just think it. You have to be committed to it. You have to take the bumps in the road that when you get guys to finally buy into what's going on. And a lot of coaches don't have like a year, 2 or 3 years to pretty much get their system in without worrying about losing their job. So
hmm
coaches want instant satisfaction. They want to make sure they're winning right away so they don't lose their job trying to implement a system that takes about 2 to 3 years to make sure it's done right. So a lot of
Yeah,
people always give up on them eventually and try to simplify what they
yeah.
do. Yeah.
How about for you? Like now, you said you're a coach for a women's team. Can you actually run the triangle as well, or
Yes, we
like
do.
some principles?
Yeah, we do. But we also would run the triangle. We also put in quite a bit of other little plays to like, as I call hitters. Like we'll go into the triangle sets, and then when I
hmm
feel like I need a different bucket or to score a different way, I have other plays outside of the triangle.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, Coach Tim now, when I watch Ginebra play, they've evolved also because the
Yep.
teams have scouted them well,
Yep.
and they have Stanley Pringle and Christian Standhardinger, so he kind of maximizes them and utilizes them well. So it's great also for you as a coach who you also adjust and still flourish under that. But then in that 1991 run, you mentioned that was the first championship, and Coach Giorgio Lastimosa also talks about that in his other interviews. What was the difference in that uh, year and that prompted the turnaround?
All right. Ask that question again.
Oh, what prompted the turnaround in that 1991 championship?
1991, it was just a commitment to detail. JoJo, myself, and Bong Alvarez, we were just all pretty good. And, Boy Kabahu, Rick Marata. Do we have Rick? I think we just have Rick. And Frankie Lamb and B-Boy Ravana was such a great defender. And Don Pelisico was actually pretty big for us back then as
Mhm.
a player and as a big player person in the body. So we just were just completely all bought in that we wanted to win the championship no matter what it took.
Oh, okay. And then like after that, you guys won more 94, 95, and then the 1996 Grand Slam.
And then
Was that the Johnny A like effect? Like when he got there and like your other teammates, how was that like? That's why you
Sure.
consecutively
It
won.
was it was Johnny A, but it was of course Johnny A was such a huge part of it, and probably the most important piece of our team. But so was Bon Hawkins. Getting Bon Hawkins and the way he plays and his fight and determination. Bon Hawkins is like the toughest guy I've ever played basketball with. He backed down from nobody. He was the toughest guy out there. He was unassuming. You didn't think much about him when you saw him play, but man, he has one of the biggest hearts I've ever played with, and he was just a pure winner. No matter what it takes, Bong Hawking will do what it takes to win.
Yeah. Similar to you. I mean, you guys pounded inside and are willing to do the dirty work and do what it takes to win, even if it hurts, even if it's painful the following day. So that's why you guys really meshed well.
Yeah.
But then for you, what also was the differentiating factor? I mean, I remember when I was reading articles that there was like also a height limit in terms of imports. And for this Grand Slam, I think they got you for the tournament wherein it's like taller imports. So how do you think you were able to play really well at a high level despite the height disadvantage?
I just tried to do what it took to give me advantage. So I was always quicker and faster than the taller imports. So I had to kind of beat them down and run the court as fast as I could and try to get easier buckets that way. And then it was also I can defend a big guy, even my size because of my jumping ability. So that kind of
hmm
helped me to be successful against the taller imports. But I also just had great teammates. My teammates can all fill in, and we can all kind of find a way to do it collectively to win. So um, they definitely helped pick me up whenever we were playing in the bigger conference.
How was the rotation like? Like I never got to watch you guys. Were you guys like a 10-man rotation, 9-man rotation? How
Uh,
was it like?
we're about nine. Yeah, we had a 9-man rotation. We started with Johnny, Joe Loss, Bon Hawkins, Puch Winyo, myself. And then we would have
Mhm.
Chris Bellotto come off the bench, Ruel Gomez, June Reyes, um, Merwin Costello. We had, we had a pretty much good, nice roster coming off the bench.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then the continuity is really important. Like you mentioned, there are a lot of coaches that when their jobs aren't there like permanently for even 3 years, like their contracts short term. But then what made you guys, do you think, like stick together? I mean, even imports like here in the Philippines, it's rare to have like even now present day Justin Brownlee or
yeah.
Alan Durham. Like it's not easy to convince them to come back here and stay and keep playing for 12 years. So what was the factor for that?
I think mostly Tim and my teammates, like they became so comfortable with me, and I became like Tim would always say, like a security blanket. We all knew we were all on the same page when I came. It wasn't no question where my desire was and if I was going to play hard for the team. And sometimes when you had other imports there, you have to question and wonder what was their ultimate goal. Were they here for the ultimate prize, or were they there just to collect a paycheck?
Yeah. But then yeah, you really had that great objective of coming here all the time and winning it all and
Yes,
being with these people and learning. I mean, you're still close to them off the court. But then
yes.
through the whole time, like in nine until 1997, when was the time that you eventually left? Like when you guys won in
Last year,
1997 for the last
we
time.
won
And
in
why did you leave?
1997. My last year was 2001.
Oh, okay. So what was it when why you left? Like did you because is it because you retired already?
What happened was I retired in 2001. That year when I came back, Johnny had been traded, JoJo had been traded.
Yeah.
I think Bone was hurt, Bone Hawkins was hurt. So it just wasn't the same team anymore.
Oh, okay.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't the guys that I grew up with and the guys that I went to all the battles with. They were all gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Yeah, and
the same for me.
yeah, that's kind of tough for you. I mean, you're gonna adjust with new players now. I think it was like Ali Peak that time, right? I
I
think.
was big, yeah. We still had Kenneth Dorindes and
Yeah,
Don Aldi Aldo, So we had a good team, but it just wasn't my guys anymore.
yeah, for sure. And that's why it's really gonna be tough for you to adjust. But then when there were like it's an import conference when you play here, maybe like two or one conference only. What were you doing when there were no Alaska games? Like, did you have another job in the U.S.
Yeah,
during the
so I
time?
would play in another country. Like I played in Venezuela a couple of times. I played in Canada leagues a couple of times. I played in Indonesia. So I did whatever I could do to try to stay in shape before I came back to Manila.
Oh, okay. How about your stints there? Like, what stood out from the other ones? Like, everyone knows about your Philippines, but how about those other countries?
Venezuela was really fun, very competitive, very similar to the Philippines. Indonesia was more of a laid back league. It was kind of a like country club basketball,
Oh,
but it
okay.
was fun because you play like 4 days and then you had 2 weeks off. So I would always go back to Manila. I
Wow. Okay.
from Indonesia, I'll go back to Manila, spend like a week in there, and then fly back to Indonesia again. Um, Canada was a really fun league. It was the modern day CBA, whatever.
Mm-mm.
It was fun. It was a great league.
Yeah. Did you make sure also that your contracts with those countries wouldn't interfere, like when Alaska would ask for you
Absolutely.
back?
Yep. Everybody knew that my goal was I was going to come back to the Philippines. So whatever my contract stated, they knew I had to be back to the Philippines the first part of August.
Oh, okay, okay. So that's great that you could negotiate
Yeah.
that and you'd
Yeah.
come
Totally.
back here
Everybody
for
knew.
sure.
Everybody knew what my home was. Everybody knew I was a Philippine. By then, we were winning so much. Everybody knew I had such a legacy going in the Philippines.
Oh, okay. So how about let's talk about like the Alaska organization, like with Mr. Oitengsu. People talk about him a lot and Coach Tim and all these other players. So when you were coming into the organization already, did you know that this the organization like values integrity a lot and being winning the right way? Like, did you already see that from the onset?
No, I didn't because I don't know if I really got a chance to meet Louis Tinser until after the first year, like to really get a chance to talk to him and meet with him. So, and
Mhm.
then as I continued to come back, I started building a more and more relationship with him and understanding the core values of the company. Tim was just new to basketball. He was just trying to figure it out. So, but
Mm.
I knew they were all both good people. And I knew they were solid. So, and I knew that whatever you signed your contract was, that's what you were going to get. No question that you're going to get paid on time. So that was great for me back then. You know,
Yeah, with that, I know, great, mesh well with how you were brought up by your mom also, because
absolutely.
that, yeah, that's why the Alaska organization was fit for you. So throughout your stint, did you also have like off the court bonding time with your teammates and your
Always.
coaches, and also
I
your
remember
coaches?
my first time going to one of our teammates' kid's birthday party, like 1 year old birthday party, and I thought it was the most extravagant birthday party I've ever been a part of, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I'm like, why are we having such a big party for a kid who just turned one and they're not going to remember it? But that
Yeah,
was the true Filipino culture thing, right? So
yeah.
the party was for everybody else, and so I went to every birthday party with the. Anytime there was a family function, I was always there with the teammates.
Oh yeah, for sure. But then for those kinds of interactions, like how do you think it really helped your team like develop? Because sometimes they say if you're close off the court and your families. I think I interviewed Jvee Casio, like he's in a old the batch now of Alaska, like this generation. They had like team dinners and they became closer. They grew closer as a team. So did that help you also a lot on the court,
Yeah,
which resulted to the championship?
yeah. When you care for the guys that you're playing with off the court, you're going to be so much more successful on the court. When you
Mm-hmm.
guys have a relationship away from the basketball court, you're going to play that much better on the court together because you care for one another and you
Yeah.
want the best for each other. So that it does matter to be able to have a relationship with your teammates off the court.
Yeah, that was really seen and your performance as a team.
Yep.
But then when you were what do you call this? When you were in the Alaska organization, what was the one that really stood out? Was it really integrity, like that values and what they try to impart to you guys and to your family also?
Yeah, I think it was all that. I think that we made it more. It gradually became more of a family culture friendly community, like the team company. It was like they embraced us having our families at every event and going on trips together and going on when we won championships. We went to Australia, we went to Hong Kong, we went to Hawaii, but the whole organization went with their families. So it, Mr. Winchester built such an amazing program and a basketball team. It's definitely sad to see it go, but he really did it the right way.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it's not gonna go already and they're not gonna continue their services in the PBA. So did you have any inkling on it happening, or was it also a surprise or a shock to you?
I had no idea Mr. Richardson sent me a text that he wanted to talk to me. And I pick up the phone, and next thing he's telling me, like, I said, "What's going on?" And he was like, "Chumbers," and I was like, "Oh my goodness, are you selling the team?" And he said, "No, I'm not selling the team, but we're no longer going to have a team in the PBA after this year. So I just wanted you to hear from me first." So I had no idea, zero. But I heard people talking about it before. Like a couple of years ago, there was rumor that Alaska may sell the team. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I never heard that from Fred. So I knew I would hear from Fred before anybody else.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. That's really sad. I mean, I'm honestly a Ginebra fan ever since I was a kid, but
Okay.
I also admire like how Alaska really brings their players. You could see the how it's embodied to them, like the culture of Alaska. So it's really unfortunate that they're gonna be gone after this year, and it's gonna be another team if ever they get purchased
Sure.
before April. I think that's what the
Yes.
PBA said.
Yes.
But then, yeah, you mentioned that you're a coach also, and what did Alaska also help in like building up your leadership skills, and how did it start there, or was it also before coming to Alaska that you saw a leader in yourself and pursuing coaching after playing?
Yeah, I think some people are just natural leaders and they want to lead by example, and that's always been me. I've always been a leader by example, and I got that from my mother.
Mhm.
And so when I got over to the Philippines in college, it was a natural part of who I was. So it didn't take much for me to be just to step into a leadership role, and I embraced wanted to have things like on me. Like I wanted to get it done because I trusted me the most, kind of like Kobe Bryant, right? I
Yeah,
trust me so much, so I know what I've been putting my effort in, and I know how much I work, and so I knew I trust me.
yeah. Aside from Coach Tim, were you like the primary leader of the squad? And if you were, like, how did you what was your style in talking to these guys? I mean, of course, they're like different. They're like Filipinos and you're Americans. Like the style might be different and the reception might be different from how you talk to them or show them what you want them to do. How was it like adjusting to that over the course of the 12 years?
I think my teammates grew on me. Like, I mean, they grew what kind of personality I had because I was always loud and having fun. And this is basketball, and you got to be having a time of your life. And when you're working as hard as you can and doing what you're supposed to do, this is all got to be so much fun. And I brought that to the court and to my teammates. And the culture sometimes is more reserved, laid back, win with grace, win humble. And I was like, and I would do that in practice. And Coach Tim, like, it was just the guys appreciated it, because it helps get them out of their shell a little bit.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the Filipinos are really brought up that way. They're more laid back and they listen to, like the leaders, like the coach or the team captain. So that's why for you maybe they appreciated how you talk to them. But then after that, what did you still watch Alaska, like even if you weren't playing,
Always.
like from 2002 always? What was your thoughts on the team ever
Oh,
since that time?
I've never lost connection with the team. I've always been connected with the team since I retired. And I was happy with the championships we won, and I've also been sad with the way we lost some tournaments. Like we lost, those champions like 3 in a row. So, but I've always stayed connected with the team since I've been retired.
Yeah, and through that, I saw in an article that you were like a consultant, I think. So
Yep.
how did that come about when they got you as a consultant in 2017?
I asked Fred. I said, I would like to stay connected with the team. I would like to consult from afar. I would like to be someone you lean on to when we need to find imports. And then, if ever, I'll always come back over to the Philippines and help out with some of with just drills and working out with the team and remind guys what it was like to be successful and how it was to win. And what it's like to play for something bigger than yourself when you're playing for your company, your family, fans, and the people, the workers in the organization that don't even get a chance to meet you sometimes. You're really playing for everybody that's bigger than you.
Yeah, among the players that played after your tenure in Alaska, like who are some of the guys you maybe spoke to or who stood out whenever you'd see them play?
Besides my own teammates, Alaska, or what do you mean?
Yeah, like when you left already.
Oh, the older. So I was a big fan of Sonny Toss. Jvee, I can't think of JV's last name right because Casio.
Yeah, Jvee Casio. I interviewed him recently also about the Alaska.
I really enjoyed JV. I like Jiren Tang right now. I like what he does. Calvin was pretty interesting guy, interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see who else. But yeah, that's really. And Tony De La Cruz he's a class act, a really good guy.
Yeah, they really showed also the Alaska values and virtues and their style of play and the way they approach the game and even their families. I think they were really close even during their time when you were not during your time anymore. But then after playing for Alaska and doing all these leadership, being a leader and being a coach now, what did you do from like 2001 until like before being a principal 13 years ago in the middle school in Sacramento?
That's when I started taking in my coaching career, at the high school level.
Okay.
And so I started coaching. I really got into it. I started trying to figure out how do I get better at this, how to improve my craft as a coach. And so I started a club AAU basketball program for girls, and it's now one of the biggest programs in all of Northern California, maybe the West Coast. So we're sponsored by Adidas because of our success on the grassroots circuits of girls basketball.
Okay, so through that like time being a coach, like what do you think developed in yourself as a person and also as a coach? Like what did you learn a lot and how did you apply it like now as a current coach of the women's team you were mentioning?
I think for me, it's just constantly improving, constantly like learning in your adult age. You can always learn and get better. I think I got smarter as a coach as I became a principal because I started paying a little bit more closer attention to details and and paying more attention to the way how I communicate with my players, so they understand. And we call it checking for understanding and making sure players are on the same page as me, So I just got better as a coach all during that time. Just got better and started doing more like individual training with players and helping them advance their skills. So right now, I think we're up to maybe 140 kids that went on from my club program that's playing at the university level.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the AAU program. I'm curious to ask you about there were some, I think some stuff I read that these players that are in the NBA now, or yeah, in the NCAA, they've played a lot of games when they were in AAU and in their other days. Like Luka Doncic, for instance, he was a professional ever since he was like 16 or 15. So do you think the AAU, I mean, you're more familiar with it. Do you think it hinders like the ability of these players? Like, do they get burnout with the number of games they play over the course of the year? Is it just coincidence that these players really sustain injuries at the NBA level now?
I don't know if they get burnt out, but I do know it creates a lot of like handlers or people that's involved in the kids' lives early,
Mhm.
and then there's a lot of social media that's blowing kids up, and sometimes they're not as good as what social media is saying, and so
Yeah.
if other kids are not getting the same social media attention, they're feeling left out. So it creates a really unique culture because everybody wants to have a camera following them and tell them how great they are, and instead of working on their game and then proving it in front of college coaches when they can come out and watch you.
Yeah. So you, what's your style and like in your approach and telling these kids that that shouldn't be the case? Because yeah, for them it's kind of tough sometimes to listen because they see other things from social media, or they listen to other people who also tell them stuff that aren't completely true. So what's
Right.
your style as a coach?
My style of coach is like we got to get better performing. When college coaches come out and watch us play at our AU tournaments, that's when they're going to really make their call and judgment about you.
Hmm.
No video is going to be the one that's going to have a college coach recruit you, right? They want to see what you can do in front of them.
Yeah. So how, as a coach, like it's kind of tough to also deal with various personalities. So what's like the most memorable conversation or story you had with a player that really stuck with you and learning from them as well?
What was the most memorable conversation I had with a player?
Yeah.
Hmm. I don't know. I think what my players get from me, my program is called JBS, which stands for Just Believe.
Yeah.
So I think for my players, they know that I believe in them 100%, and I'm going to support them through the good and the bad. And so I think that's what they get out of from me is that I'm gonna support them no matter what. And if we don't get it right the first game day or a game, we're gonna get together. We're gonna figure it out again. But yeah,
Yeah, that's really something that they will really use that learning from you, and they could apply it well to their game. But then after that, I heard also recently that you were considered as a UST head coach when after the Alden Ayo issue. So was that really a real thing that you were trying to apply for the UST job? And if that was true, like even now that the season's starting, like do you have plans of coaching here in the near future, or you still gonna stick to your coaching there and your
yeah.
principal job?
No, if the opportunity arises, comes up, and it's a right fit, right situation, I definitely have a desire to come back to the Philippines and coach. And
Yeah.
there was some, like I said, negotiation that was going on between myself and a couple of universities in the Philippines. So yeah, I definitely have an interest in coming back.
Yeah. What's like your motivation and your interest in coaching here? Like, what's the major differences of the players here, especially at the amateur level, like collegiate or high school, that you see like compared to the ones in the states?
Yeah, I think the UAP and the NCAA basketball games are some of the most euphoric atmosphere that anybody can see in basketball. Like to
Hmm.
watch Antonio play a De La Salle game is like better than the Duke crazies and the Cameron crazy at Duke. It's especially when you get to the Final Four games, it's just absolutely insane. So I would love to be a part of that culture.
how did you get used to that when you were still in the States and before you played here? Were you already expected that the Coliseum, like, I mean,
No,
Alaska had a lot of fans during
no,
your
I had
time?
no idea it was going to be like that until I got there. So when I got there and went to a UAAP game, I was totally enamored by how it was. I was so like caught up into the what do you call it, the theatrics of the whole show of a UAP game. It's just the drums and everything
Yeah.
that's going on. It's just quite the culture.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully we see you
My battery's about
coaching.
to run low. Do I need to go get my cord?
Sorry.
My battery's about to run low. Do I need to go charge back up?
Oh,
Am I
we're about to wrap up if
okay?
you're okay.
All right.
Yeah, so I want to thank you again, Sean,
Thank
for
you.
joining me here in my podcast. But then I'd ask you some final questions that I usually ask my guests. And one of it is, in the bubble in the NBA, the players were more vocal with social and political issues. And with the whole issues with in the US with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and everything. Like here in the Philippines, I feel the athletes are not as vocal, or they don't post in their social media as much as the ones in the States, and they have the following here in the Philippines to inform others on social and political issues as well. So as an athlete, or as a coach also, do you think they could be more vocal or be more active, and is it okay for you for athletes to talk about those kinds of issues?
Absolutely, because you have a platform and you have people that listen to you. You have a fan base that you can reach out to when you're speaking out on justice and people doing things the right way. And we really speaking out on injustice, right? So when you can reach a huge audience with your mouthpiece and with your platform, I think it's your it's your responsibility to speak out on anything that is not that's unjust.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the Philippines is improving. I mean, these past
Sure.
few months with the elections coming up,
Yeah.
the athletes are using their platform, to amplify their voice and expand the knowledge of their followers on the issues occurring here. So yeah, that's great. But then the next question is just for fun. If you had the opportunity to have dinner with five people, dead or alive, who would you bring to that dinner?
Julius Irving, Halle Berry, Philippines, Pops Fernandez.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, um, I'm actually even going to say in the Philippines, President Corazon Aquino,
yeah.
um, and then lastly Stevie Wonder.
Okay, that's a great list. I didn't expect you to put Filipinos also on the list, so it's great for you. And for the last question, I just messaged you also like on social media. That's how I usually invite
Yeah,
my guests here on the podcast because I don't have like connections.
yeah,
So who would you suggest that I could invite here on the podcast to share their story as well and succeeding in their own craft and their own professional sports
Ruel
career?
Gomez. He was a great part of our team. Ruel Gomez will be interesting to talk to now that he lives in the States now.
Okay, I'd keep
Yeah,
keep that in mind, especially because I didn't get to watch you guys. So whenever you
yes,
guys tell your stories, I really learn a lot. Like I never watched any Alaska game in the '90s, only like the highlights and the
yeah,
stories you guys share in the podcast. Like you guys had a lot of episodes in the early part of the pandemic here in the Philippines,
yes,
so I was able to
yes.
watch those. So yeah, thank you so much again,
Thank
Sean, for
you.
joining me here in my podcast. And do you have any final message before you go?
Marami salamat po. Thank you to all the Filipinos and all the fans out there. Mahal kita talaga. Love you guys all. And continue prayers to the Philippines, and hopefully things get better. And I hope to see you guys soon back in Manila.
Okay, we hope to see you soon. Is it okay if we take a picture before you go? Okay, I'll take it from here. One, two, three. Okay, thank you so much, Sean, for joining me here and
Thanks.
stay safe out there.
Bye.